Look at 11, 13:11. We'll back up to 10. The disciples came to him and asked, "Why do you speak to the people in parables?" Okay, Jesus, why do you tell us stories? Why do you speak in parables? He replied, "The knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. Whoever has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. This is why I speak in parables." And he quotes Isaiah again. "Though seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, or understand. In them is fulfilled what the prophecy of Isaiah. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears. They have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I will heal them." Okay? It's a passive wrath. It's a hardening of heart, and then Jesus responding. Okay, I'm going to speak in parables then. All right, back to verse 8 of Romans 11. God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes so that they could not see, ears that they could not hear to this very day. Okay? A passive wrath. Here's also what I think this looks like, and this sort of was made evident to me this weekend. We were at a conference in Philadelphia. We were listening to Matt Chandler, who was the main speaker there, and he said something in the hermeneutics class that we took. He said, for teachers, he was saying, if you teach things and you're telling people to do something that you yourself are not doing, so if I'm instructing you guys and I'm saying, do this, do this, do this, yet in my own life I'm not practicing that, he explained that the passive wrath of God will be on me because my heart is slowly becoming hard. Because I can tell you to do something and I don't have to do it. Hardening of heart, hardening of heart. And I would add this to what Matt said. If you are constantly under the teaching of the Bible and you're hearing God say, do this, don't do this, don't do this, and you just do it or don't do it anyway, your heart is slowly becoming hard and calloused. And when you hear commands, it'll just be easy for you to brush them off. Easier and easier every time. Okay? That's just a warning. I'm taking that for myself too, because we all have that tendency to hear a command, and if it messes with something in our lives, it's really easy to just brush that off. Okay, our hearts will become slowly harder and harder and harder. And I think that's why Jesus spoke to them in parables. It was to fulfill Isaiah. And Isaiah 6, we went over that in detail last week, is when Jesus was in his glory, and Isaiah's like, woe is me, pronounced a curse on himself, and Jesus cleanses him. The angel comes with the coal and cleanses his lips, and then Jesus says, who will go for us? And Isaiah says, I'll go. And he says, okay, and then here's what you're going to do. You're going to preach, and your preaching is going to harden hearts. It's going to blind eyes. It's going to deafen ears, and hearing they won't hear, seeing they won't see. Otherwise, they would turn, and I would heal them. And remember, John 12 applies that passage to Jesus just like Matthew 13 did. Jesus speaks and he says, come to the light, and they will not come to the light. And they just get harder and harder and harder. And hearing, they don't hear. Seeing, they don't see. Does that make sense? When you see a miracle performed right in front of you, a man is raised from the dead, or you remember John chapter 9 when the man who was born blind is given his sight. Remember that? And he shows up before the Pharisees and he's like on trial. And they're like, who did this? And he's like, I already told you. Do you want to become his disciple? And they're like, how can you, a man born in sin, speak to us and teach us? Right? And he's like, we know this man is a sinner. And the blind guy, wiser than them, says, this is amazing. A man opens the eyes of a man born blind, and you think he's a sinner. We know that God does not work through sinners. Right? And they put him out. Clear evidence right in front of their face, and the blind guy is arguing with them, trying to get them to see Jesus. Get out of here. Right? And remember, right before that, they called his parents in to verify. Remember that? They called his parents in. Is this your son? Yes, it is. Was he born blind? Yes, he was. How did he get healed? And they were like, we don't know. We're not going to touch that one. And then John tells us why. Because the Pharisees had already given an order. Anyone who is trusting in Jesus, believing in Jesus, or is Jesus' disciple will be put out of the synagogue.
They were actually afraid to answer the question in fear of being put out of the synagogue. So when he asked them, was he born like this? They actually told the Pharisees, go ask him, he's a big lion.
Yeah. Go ask him. Yeah. Okay, you get the idea. If evidence is right in front of your face, that's why Jesus pronounced the curses on the cities where he did the most miracles. In fact, he said at one point in his ministry, if you don't believe by what I say, at least believe on the miracles. If miraculous signs are being done in front of you and people are coming back from the dead and demons are being cast out, leprosy is being healed, and the truth is being proclaimed, the Messiah has come. This is what the Old Testament said would happen. It's happening. Yet you will not believe.
Almost like having an addiction.
Explain.
Like, say, whatever your addiction was, you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Say, my addiction was alcoholism or whatever. And I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. My mother would come and I would see her. She would tell me life is so much better on this side. Me being sober and clean and all that. And I would want to be like that, but my addiction was just, like, I'd see the stuff, but, like, my heart was just so hardened into that lifestyle that I didn't. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that kind of
Yeah.
like it, like a metaphor?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And if you don't mind me saying, that's real to him because it's real. Um, and what Zach said for the video, because they can't hear you, he said it's like someone who loves alcohol and someone who loves them on the other side of alcoholism saying, look, come to the sober side. It's so much better over here. And you're blinded to that because you love the alcohol so much. And we could just generalize it so it applies to everybody. Here's what this looks like for everybody. Your sin of choice, you're engulfed in that, whether it's internet porn, whether it's alcohol, whether it's heroin, whether it's self-righteousness, which was the Jewish problem, whatever it is, Jesus calls, pastors call, teachers call, books call, good music is calling, and it's saying, come out of that and come to Jesus. And we're so blinded by our love for the darkness, whatever it looks like in your life, that we do not want to come out of the darkness into the light. Okay, let's move on. Verse 9, David says, may their table become a snare and a trap, a stumbling block and a retribution for them. May their eyes be darkened so they cannot see and their backs bent forever. This is judgment. And I believe that what this is saying, this is directed towards the Jewish people because the whole chapter is directed towards the Jewish people. And what this is saying is, and this is quoted from Psalm 69, verses 22 and 23. In the previous verse, God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes so that they could not see, ears so that they could not hear to this very day. That is Deuteronomy 29:4 and Isaiah 29:10. It's a combination of those two. This one is Psalm 69. And so very quickly, please turn to Psalm 69. I know we did this, but just very quickly. Psalm 69, 22 and 23. Here's what it says. May their table set before them become a snare. May it become a retribution and a trap. May their eyes be darkened so they cannot see and their backs be bent forever. Remember, David is writing Psalm 69 and he's writing it to his enemies. Now, what's that? Oh, Psalm 69, 22 and 23. Yeah. Now, what's interesting about Psalm 69 that we mentioned last week is that aspects of Psalm 69 are messianic. What I mean by messianic is they point to Jesus. Okay? Look at verse 9. It says, zeal for your house has consumed me. You guys remember that from John chapter 2, 17, when Jesus goes into the temple and he sees them selling all kinds of animals, and he flips the table of the money changers, and he makes a whip, and he drives out the people selling doves. And the disciples, it says, they remembered what was written. Zeal for your house has eaten me, or is eating me, or is taken over me. Okay, so this verse 9 applies to Jesus. Also, the second part of verse 9 applies to Jesus. Look, and the insults of those who insult you fall on me. Okay, Romans chapter 15, I have it here for you. Romans 15:3 actually uses that exact quote and applies it to Jesus. Let me read it for you. Romans 15:3. For even Christ did not please himself, but, as it is written, the insults of those who insult you have fallen on me. And so Paul in Romans 15:3 applies the second part of 69b to Jesus.